Classic Rock 98.1, a proud supporter of the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit.
Classic Rock 98.1. It is Dan Wiley. Thanks so much for listening this afternoon. You've heard us talking about Brian Vollmer's new project, The Golden Age of the Canadian Bar Circuit. Brian has been traveling the country, talking to old rockers, sharing their stories. One of the people they talked to was Al Harlow of Prism. That interview is up on their Patreon site now. It is filled with some incredible stories. Al Harlow joining us now to talk about the experience. Al, thanks for being here. Let's get started. How was it working with Brian on the project?
Well, it was remarkable, and I so admire Brian Vollmer. Brian is a life force unto himself. If you can bottle that energy and that enthusiasm and all that savvy, boy, you got a product,
And was it fun? Like reminiscing on the old days, is that a good time for you?
Oh, absolutely so. And you know how selective the human memory is. Like you can be in a room and you'd be sharing a memory, and someone's going to remember this aspect. We all remember it slightly differently, don't we?
We color it, right? There's some shared details, but a lot of it's colored with our own perspectives. So
yes, those sepia-toned postcard memories.
So was there one memory or that Brian reminded you of where you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that?
Well, let's see. Yeah, now that would be, it's a bit selfish here because he was remembering, his experiences out west. One of the grand old rock clubs called Harlow's in Victoria, which I had totally forgotten about. And he reminded me of that. But a lot of it for he and I, together we've done a lot of shows together on the classic rock festival circuit and stuff like that. So yeah, we've become closer in the last number of years than way back when. And I think I'm a couple of years older than him too, so we would have been hitting it just a couple of years apart. But yeah, it's these friendships are marvelous because yes, we do share the circuit. Some have called it, Highway 1, coast to coast. We know where all the Tim Hortons are out there.
Al Harlow of Prism joining us, talking about the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit. The interview they did with Al is up on their Patreon site right now. For that link, you can text the word HELIX, HELIX, to 519-679-3733. We'll send it right to you. Al, in the vein of the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit, is there a club, a bar, a venue that you miss?
Oh my goodness, yeah, there probably were more than one because I would hear about clubs that we never got to. You know what I mean? Like when we were kids before we had records out, all that sort of thing. Nobody flew anywhere. You had to drive to wherever you were going, and this country is so wide that out west, what we called, traveling east, I don't think in those days we got any further east than Brandon, Manitoba. Now, Brian informed me, of all these great clubs, which I heard, in Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and this kind of stuff. And I just heard these legendary stories. I mean, like Trooper got out there and did all that too. And, places that I never got to. And then when Prism had its 15 minutes of glory, we kind of catapulted straight into the coliseums and the arenas and the hockey rinks. You know what I mean? So we missed it there too, although we were playing every corner of North America by that point. So for me, it wasn't until the 90s. I call it Chapter 2, where all of our bands had a second chapter. And it was only then that I got back, east of Ontario and east out to the Maritimes. But I kind of miss the golden era of many of those clubs.
Al Harlow of Prism joining us, chatting about the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit. Al, how is touring different today?
What constitutes a tour today is no more than 3 dates, and then you fly home, and then you do another one of those, at the end of the month, or like once a month you'll go out for those kinds of things, and that's fine, and you can have a good year doing that. But in the good old days, you were just you lived out of your suitcase, like if you knew that you had to find a laundromat somewhere along the way, that constituted a tour, So yeah, I mean, once upon a time when we toured the States and so forth, we'd be gone for months, and touring Canada, we would be gone for weeks and weeks at a time. So yeah, now 3 days is a tour.
So I want to just go back. So I'm curious, best laundromat that you ever had to visit. Where in Canada has the best one?
Well, I remember. Why is this? I don't know. But we would often have Sundays or Mondays off. I'm sure that'll be in Brian's book. What did you do on your day off? Well, that would be laundry day. And for some reason, there's a little town in Saskatchewan called Kairoki, not karaoke, but Kairoki. And they had a very active laundromat. And for some reason, we knew that was there. It was just in the back of our minds. And so if we were traveling across the prairies, we would stop in Kairoki and do our laundry.
As you look back, did you ever get to tour with someone, open the show or headline a show that you were in awe of the person you were touring with?
Yes, and now, of course, you're citing that period where we would have toured the States that way, and I know Brian has similar stories. So, yeah, you would swoop around for weeks and months at a time being the opening act, So I guess for us, and now I'm dating myself, but we toured for months on end with the Beach Boys. And also when Cheap Trick and Meatloaf were breaking out and having their biggest tours, and we would jump back and forth. We were opening for Meatloaf again, months on end. We were on the Bat Out of Hell, the initial explosion. We were there, and we became quite close friends. So when Michael Aday officially legally changed his name to M. Loaf, there was a private party held, and we were invited to that. So they were kind of mentoring us in those days. We were the up and coming, and they were very kind to us, which is not always the case when you've got the big headliner. Sometimes it's quite standoffish, And the Beach Boys were on Capitol Records, and we were on Capitol Records, and we were young enough that when we were growing up, they were our heroes. So. That was another one.
I had read that you guys had kind of opened on the Bat Out of Hell tour, and I was just wondering if you had, obviously that's a pretty cool story, being at his renaming party, but was there anything else that you remember, or anything that stands out from that tour?
Well, yeah. Now his band were all New York pro guys, like pit musicians. They were with him on the Rocky Horror run on Broadway, that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I'm a guitar player. And their bass player was a guy named Steve, and I was in Prism. I had to play a lot of bass on stage, and there was a lot of twin guitar work, and our keyboard player would play left-hand bass and stuff. And he took me aside one day, and he says, why don't we sit down? And so he became my bass teacher. I took bass lessons from Meatloaf's bass player, and we would cool our jets in New York between tours, or at least I would, and our drummer Rocket and I would go to New York, and we wouldn't come home. We were young guys, I had nothing to come home to. I'll just stay here. And so I must say that my date when I would be in New York, and it was just a platonic, fun date, but Carla DeVito was Meatloaf's singer, and so we were friends and so forth. And so she would allow me to be her escort when we would spend time in New York. So it was really pleasant, friendly memories. We really had a good friendship with those guys.
Al Harlow of Prism. Al, thank you so much for sharing those stories this afternoon. It's awesome. If you would like to hear more stories from the road and everything else, the interview with Al Harlow up on the Patreon site for the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit right now. Text the word HELIX, HELIX, to 519-679-3733. We can send you the link. Al, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Classic Rock 98.1, a proud supporter of the golden age of the Canadian bar circuit.